Okay, I don't want to start out in a cranky way, but if you're somebody who thinks you could walk into a room and negotiate effectively without any preparation at all, I think you're completely wrong.
Wrong, 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 wrong.
Here's the thing. Even the most skillful, the best, the most natural negotiators can't be as good as they could be without preparation. If you're still skeptical about my assertion, let me give you an example. Think about some of the world's best athletes. Think about maybe someone like Serena Williams. Now, we all know she is an amazing tennis player. She has a huge amount of talent. She has a huge amount of intensity. She gets amazing results. But you know what else? She prepares. She practices. She has a coach. The notion that even a natural can be as good as they can be without a lot of preparation is simply wrong-headed. And so today, I'm going to share with you best practices for preparing effectively in a negotiation. And I'm going to make this claim. When it comes to success in negotiation, how well you do is at least half dependent on how thorough, thoughtful, and complete your preparation is. And here's a spoiler alert. At least half of your preparation should be focused on what the world looks like from the perspective of the other side. So before we get started, tell me about some of the ways you prepare for negotiations or difficult conversations by dropping them in the comments below. Okay, so let me start with step one. Before you go into any negotiation, you need to think about what will you do if you do not reach an agreement with the other side. In other words, you need to make a list of your away from the table alternatives. Once you have made that list, you then need to identify which of those is the thing you will actually do if you don't reach an agreement. And that thing you will do if you don't reach an agreement is termed in our field your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. And in a negotiation, I want to make sure that I never reach an agreement unless what is being offered me across the table is better than my BATNA. Now, this may seem obvious to some of you, but I will say that from my own experience, many people don't actually prepare by thinking about what their BATNA is. Instead, if you ask them, they'll say something like, well, if I don't reach an agreement, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Or I'll keep looking for something else to do. And that's nice, but it's incomplete. You need to know what you're going to do, because if you do not know what your alternative is, it will be very hard to decide whether or not you should actually reach a deal with the other side. Related to this kind of preparation is trying to improve your alternative before you go into the negotiation. If I just got a job offer from my absolute dream employer, before I negotiate the terms of that deal, I may actually want to get a second job offer if I can. Why? Well, imagine if I'm going in and I'm negotiating the salary with my dream employer, and my current alternative is to keep looking. Imagine instead if I have an offer from a competitor to my dream employer. My leverage is going to be much better in that second situation than in the first. Second, as I'm preparing, before I go into that negotiation, I need to think about what are my underlying interests. In other words, what are my goals in this negotiation? Now, here I want to make a really important point, because in negotiation, we want to distinguish positions from interests. Now, you might be thinking, what am I talking about here? The way many of us negotiate is we negotiate around our positions. Here's what I want. Here's my demand. Here's my offer. And all of those things are positions. Interests are actually the underlying answer to the question why. What are the reasons why you want $58,000? What are the reasons why you want an office with a window? What are the reasons why you want a blue car and not a red car? Before I go into that negotiation, I want to understand and prepare making a list of my underlying interests. So maybe the reason why I want an office with a window is I really like natural light. Or maybe I want prestige. Or maybe I want status. understanding what the interests are is critically important. And now I'm going to come back to that point I made earlier. Because you can't just stop with thinking about your own interests. You got to think about what are the interests that the negotiation counterparty might have. Now, if you're sitting there thinking like, who cares about that? Like, that doesn't matter. First of all, you're not alone. Almost everyone I work with, when I try to get them to think about the other side, they're like, I thought you were trying to help me. Like, why are we spending so much time on the other side? But here's a key point. In a negotiation, you need to reach an agreement with the other side. And you know what the easiest way to reach the agreement is? To actually come up with a deal that meets their interests. And so thinking about what their interests are is going to really set you up for the next step. Because the next step for preparation, once I have a list of my interests and once I have a list of their interests, is to actually think about what might be some outcomes or some options that actually would meet those interests. So in this preparation stage, what I want to really be doing is referencing the list of interests and then think as creatively as I can. What are some of the ways that the various interests can be met? So let me just go back to that example I used earlier. I want an office with a window because I want status or I want prestige. Well, if I'm just stuck on the position, which is office with a window, and then I learn that the employer would love to give me an office, but they don't have any window offices at this point, we're kind of stuck. But if I spend some time realizing actually what I most care about is prestige, then there's a range of other things like, I don't know, a reserved parking spot or a fancier title or a part-time assistant. All of those things would meet my interest of prestige, but they're not necessarily me getting the office with a window. So I want to spend some time thinking about how I would meet my interests and their interests in a way that isn't just about a particular position. Okay, so now in my preparation, I have this really big list of possible options. Probably not going to be able to do them all, and I'm probably not going to be able to get them all. But at some point, I'm going to have to decide which ones, working with the other side, are going to work. And that's when this next preparation phase is really important. I want to know what the objective criteria are because when it comes to distributive issues, or what we would call dividing the negotiation pie, I want it to be based on some fair criteria, some standard of legitimacy. For example, the salary should be linked to relevant market, or maybe the price for item is based on what past contracts have looked like. Or maybe if I'm setting international tariff rates, it's based on some World Trade Organization standard. The idea of having criteria is that criteria are always going to ensure that a final outcome is objectively defensible, is not arbitrary, and is not a product simply of anchoring or leverage or power. Okay, last thing that I really want to urge you to do is once you've done this preparation, which is a lot of paper preparation to be honest, now I want you to actually do a role play, practicing with a trusted colleague or a friend or a mentor before you go into that negotiation.
59,
65.
60,
65.
61.
Let me make it plain. I cannot take the job for under 65 under no conditions.
Now you might be thinking, oh my gosh, like I don't have time for this. But I want to tell you that that practice is so critically important and helpful. So let me just wrap up by saying preparation is at least 50% of your success. To continue your learning, keep on watching this next video, The Art of Persuasion for Professional Success. And before you leave, make sure you subscribe to this channel, like this video, and ring the bell so you'll continue to get all sorts of new information on how to be as persuasive and effective in negotiation as you can. Okay, it's not difficult to keep watching. Click, click.